Welcome into 49ers Access. My name is Sterling Bennett, and today we're going to dive into the San Francisco 49ers 2026 impending free agents and going to ask the question, do you re-sign him or do you let that player walk? Drop your comments down below. Play along with me as we go through 20-plus players of the San Francisco 49ers free agents. And again, ask that question, are you going to bring them back or are you going to let them walk in the off season? There are some big names on the docket like Jawan Jennings and Spencer Burford, two players integral into San Francisco's offensive success. There is some key special teamers and, of course, some highly paid defensive talent like Yetur Gross-Matos and Jason Pinnock, who probably won't be brought back, but that's for you and I to decide today, not for Kyle and John Lynch to figure out this off season. That said, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Leave us that 5-star audio podcast review, and let's dive into the 2026 San Francisco 49ers impending free agent class and ask, you re-signing him or you letting him walk in a few months when the season officially ends? That said, let's dive into the list we have in front of us. You can see it on your screen on YouTube. Obviously, for the audio podcasting listeners out there, I will say them verbally out loud, but let's start at the bottom of our list. We have the SPO track up. We have the over the cap up on the screen. You can see we have RFAs, ERFAs, and UFAs. Basically, you have your unrestricted free agents, meaning they can sign anywhere with anybody at any time. They are free to go and also free to re-sign. Your RFAs and your ERFAs are basically restricted free agents that San Francisco maintains the rights of. They can match an offer or they can place a tender on them and maybe recoup a draft pick if they tend to sign at a different team or location. So with that in mind, let's start here with Kalia Davis, our first free agent on the list, and ask, you re-signing him or you letting him walk? And Kalia Davis, I think, is one of the more interesting players on the list simply because he was healthy all year, played in all 19 games. He was somebody who San Francisco maybe couldn't rely on to give them the production they would desire of a starting defensive tackle, which he shouldn't have been for the second half of the year. It shouldn't have been West and Collins, the rookies of the class 2025, but I digress. Kalia Davis was somebody that San Francisco asked to be a defensive starter for almost 19 games this year, and he was out there. He was healthy. He didn't do much, but he was a body that was able. And that was really hard to come by for the 49ers in 2025, and maybe that's a reason why San Francisco wants to bring him back or could bring him back in 2026. Now, he is an RFA, so San Francisco can place a tender on him or match an offer by somebody else. Let's say the Houston Texans, the New York Jets. Let's say they want to bring in Kalia Davis. San Francisco has the right to match any offer and then bring them back. Now, I don't think Kalia Davis, of all people, was going to be, getting big deals or be a hot commodity on the free agent market. But that said, he is a valuable piece, at least when it comes to being healthy and also being a depth guy. I think if Kalia Davis is, let's say, your fifth defensive tackle, your fourth defensive tackle behind Collins and West, and hopefully a draft pick or a star defensive tackle signing, if he is your fifth guy in that room, you don't hate it. You don't love it either, but you don't hate it. I think a lot of the free agent class San Francisco has is not starting caliber players, but players that were asked to start because of the injuries San Francisco had or the rookies they had on the roster that didn't feel quite comfortable starting yet. Davis, to me, feels like somebody who they let walk or at least test the waters and see how things go. He also is somebody that they believe would be DJ Jones. He's not that, so I don't know where that came from. But he's a smaller guy, kind of that, big rock boulder build. And I think, being in the defense probably gives San Francisco more reason to bring him back than not. But somebody that can easily, and I mean easily, be replaced in the draft or signing a veteran in the free agent market. So I'd let him walk unless he's getting no deals and you want a cam body or somebody you can at least believe can be healthy again and maybe give you some much needed depth in the back end of your roster. But if you have 90 men on your roster, he's probably around the 85th guy, 84th guy on that team. He's not really somebody that does much for you, and I think you can let him walk in free agency. The next guy, pretty simple, Austin Pleasance. He was this team's sole backup tackle, unless you want to classify Burford as the left guard, left tackle, but because of injury was forced to just play left guard this year. That said, Austin Pleasance is an ERFA, essentially meaning the exact same thing of Clea Davis, albeit there are some nuances to an exclusive rights free agent compared to a restricted free agent. But he'll be back. He should be back. I don't love Austin Pleasance, but he knows the offense. He's relatively young compared to a 38-year-old Trent Williams, and obviously Colton McKivitz now signed to a 2-year contract extension on the right-hand side of things on the offensive line. They'll bring him back. Every reason to. He's not going to cost you much. Why not? If anything, at worst, he's a cam body, but somebody that, you at least believe can be a fine enough backup tackle that probably shouldn't be. I don't think San Francisco would have picked him out of the bunch of tackles they had in training camp last year. Dillard just couldn't stay healthy, and Brandon Parker became a practice squad player for them. So I think they should look to upgrade here, but why not bring him back and re-sign him? I think as an ERFA, there's kind of no reason not to bring him back in 2026. We have one let walk and one bring back through our first two players. And that leads us to Robert Beal Jr., the guy who I believe Chris Kocurek probably handpicked. I believe it was in 2021, maybe in 2022, with the hope that he'd be a speed rusher off the edge, and it's never worked. He's either not healthy, or his pad level's too high, or he just simply isn't good enough. He's somebody that if there was going to be a year he'd find a way to make an impact, it would have been this season. You lose Bosa, you lose Yetur Gross-Matos, you lose Micah Williams. Okay, Robert Beal Jr., now's your chance. And he did nothing. He couldn't even be active on Sundays for most of the season. So let him walk. He's not been a good draft pick. Maybe Chris Kocurek, because Beal Jr. is an RFA, decides, you know what, he was my guy. I'll try to bring him back in that regard, but there's no reason to. You can find almost anybody. Go get a rookie, plug him in there, and you can at least have the belief that, well, at least he's young. At least there's room to improve. RBJ can just kind of go away. So I would not bring RBJ back. I'd let him walk in 2026. The next two guys who I think are must re-signs, must bring backs, and thankfully both of those guys are RFAs, restricted free agents this offseason, that being tight end Jake Tunges and Sam Okawanu, the defensive end. Jake Tunges, pretty simple here. George Kittle out for most of, if not all of, 2026, barring a miraculous return from an Achilles tear, and Luke Farrell should be cut because he was terrible. If San Francisco decides to not cut Luke Farrell, you should still bring back Jake Tunges. He is your best, at least on the roster now, receiving threat at tight end. He does have some chemistry with Brock Purdy at quarterback, and at least he showed something as a receiving threat because Luke Farrell did none of that. Now, San Francisco may draft a tight end, sign a tight end. In fact, they probably should do both of those things this offseason. That said, Tunges is somewhat young. He isn't near 30 yet, thank God. And while I do have concerns about his plantar fasciitis he suffered in the playoff game against the Seahawks, he has 3 months to get over it, 4 months to get over it before OTAs begin, which, he'll probably be the incumbent starter with Kittle out unless San Francisco adds a top-of-the-line tight end in free agency. And I think, as a number 2 tight end, he'd be a nice piece to have. I think, he's shown more than not, especially this past season with San Francisco. So RFA, give him a tender, 3rd, 4th round, bring him back. The odds someone tries to sign him for that, is slim. I think it's a pretty good chance, and really should be a good chance. Just returns. Samuel Kawanu, same thing for him. You know, you can argue he is this team's second best 3-down edge rusher. You have Nick Bosa, right? That's the elite guy. That's a leader in that room. Plays every single down, or at least tries to. He's awesome, right? He's a top 5 edge rusher in football for a reason, and paid handsomely for that for a reason, right? But then San Francisco has kind of role players alongside Nick Bosa, right? It's Bryce Huff, a 3rd-down edge rusher, a pass rushing specialist. Micah Williams, the edge setting run defender on 1st and 2nd down, moves inside while Bryce Huff comes on the outside on 3rd downs. And it's a pretty nice room when healthy. However, Samuel Kawanu, in a group of Robert Beal Jr.'s and Clelin Ferrell's and Yetur Gross-Matos, is probably this team's, again, best 3-down edge rusher. I think he was one of the more consistent pieces on the defensive line. He was healthy for most of the season, and he was asked to fill Nick Bosa's shoes, and albeit there wasn't sack numbers and a ton of pressures, he was one of the better edge rushers on this team. He's a solid run defender. He's a good nut pass rusher. And I think when you're asking somebody who is better served as your 4th or 5th defensive end on a roster to fill in your elite level shoes in Nick Bosa, who's out for the rest of the year after getting hurt in week 3, I thought Samo was good. Now, again, he wasn't great. Not saying that, but I think he should be in conversations, you know, for the MVP of the defense. Again, there wasn't sack numbers, and that may sound crazy to you, but Samo is awesome, and I think he deserves praise for that. And I think he'll be back next year for that. He has a high motor. He's just a good guy you want to have in the room. And for San Francisco, that needs more guys like him in the room. Why let him go for nothing? He's an RFA, so there could be a tender placed on him. So maybe they let him walk for something. But I think, you know, you value him more than, say, a 5th-round draft pick or a 4th-round draft pick right now, at least, with the roster the way it's currently constructed. So you bring back Tunjis, you bring back Samo, their RFAs. They should be back in 2026 by far. They're getting the re-sign title next to their name. The next guy on our list is also an RFA, that being cornerback Chase Lucas. And, you know, I really like Chase Lucas. I think Chase Lucas is a fine depth cornerback. He can be a nickel back for you. There was reasons to believe, you know, there was excitement around him in preseason. Had a big nickel blitz against the Broncos, nearly forced a safety. Had a couple of big plays against the Falcons in that big win off Monday Night Football following Fred Warner's season-ending ankle injury. Got San Francisco back on track in a big way in prime time. But then also was inactive for like the last 4 weeks of the season, and then missed, although it wouldn't have changed much in the grand scheme of things. He missed a tackle on Rashid Shaheed's opening kickoff in the playoff game against the Seahawks. So there's reasons to like Chase Lucas, also reasons to willingly say goodbye to him in the offseason. Maybe Brant Boyer, the team's special teams coordinator, has a say in this. Lucas being a primary special teamer, if you will. Maybe he's brought back in that respect. I wouldn't mind it. I like him more than Darrell Luter Jr., who just is not good. But certainly he'd walk into camp as hopefully your 5th, 6th, 7th cornerback with maybe a chance to make the roster. And again, does give you some versatility at nickelback and special teams. So I wouldn't mind bringing him back, but under the case of go to free agency, test your market, probably won't be too big, and maybe we'll give you a call come March or, you know, late April when OTAs are kind of rounding into form and rosters are kind of being finalized before the season and the offseason finally ends. So I'll give him the let walk ... for now label. I think he's someone you want to bring back, but is by no means a priority free agent to re-sign. You can find guys like him. They're a dime a dozen, but he's a vet. Maybe he can help you on the fringes of your roster next season like he did this year for the San Francisco 49ers. The next guy, though, I think is a not must re-sign, but somebody you'd like to see back in 2026 and maybe should have been starting for San Francisco sooner than he was, and maybe shouldn't have been benched by San Francisco when he was in the playoffs. That being linebacker Garrett Wallow. He was waiver claimed, signed off the Broncos practice squad middle of the year, and he was signed to give them some depth. They had lost Fred Warner. They had lost Tatum Bethune. They needed answers, right? They lost Nicholas Martin to a concussion, and they were just looking for guys that were healthy and can actually play. And lo and behold, Garrett Wallow was starting one game for San Francisco all year, and it happened to be the best game this defense played, maybe the best game they played on defense all year, if you want to put it that way, against the Philadelphia Eagles in the playoffs, alongside Eric Kendricks. He played a heck of a game for San Francisco, taking over for D. Winters in the linebacker spot. He was somebody that, you didn't really know what to expect, but he's a sure tackler. He lacks in coverage at times, but he's not supposed to be a starter. But I think in the time he did start, you can make the case he probably should have started that game against the Seattle Seahawks in the divisional round. He didn't do that. Would it have changed things? Probably not, but I think Garrett Wallow did enough to prove himself to be brought back in 2026. I like what I saw. If anything, he's a special teamer that can give you a spot start here or there. Someone that goes down, or at least give you some depth in preseason behind guys like Fred and Bethune and Winters, and hopefully, fingers crossed, Nick Martin can pass concussion protocol finally. It's really scary there, and I think because of that, you want to bring in Garrett Wallow or bring him back because you just don't know what's going to happen there for Nicholas Martin, and you may lose Luke Gifford, and you just want to have a guy you can trust behind a lot of young players trying to find their way. Don't forget, Nick Martin going into year 2, still super unproven. Bethune, year 3, 7th-round draft pick. A lot of good, a lot of bad in his game. D. Winters had a really good beginning to this past year, then a really bad end. You want to have some guys you can trust behind a very inconsistent linebacking core without Fred Warner at the helm. So bring him back. You should. The next guy is Teron Jackson. He didn't play a single snap. He was hurt all year. Why bother? Draft an edge rusher, sign an edge rusher. You can bring anybody in as long as they can play a single snap, and they'd be more beneficial to the roster than Teron Jackson was. So let Teron Jackson walk. Nothing more needs to be said. The next guy is Matt Hennessy, though, on our list. He's a UFA. He was this team's backup center in 2025. Actually played a handful of games for San Francisco, and Jake Brendel missed, I think, 2 games this year, and actually played pretty well. I'm of the belief that Matt Hennessy should be this team's backup center in 2026, whether it's behind Jake Brendel, which it probably will be, or behind somebody else, fingers crossed, Tyler Linderbaum. But nevertheless, probably Brendel. But I think he's somebody that, you can trust. He was taking over for Alex Mack a handful of years ago at the Falcons, played Philadelphia a couple years ago too, so he's been around the block a handful of times. He knows the offense now after playing in it for a season, and I think he gave you what you want from a backup center. A fine run blocker, a good pass blocker, pretty reliable behind an offensive line that wasn't so a lot of this year. The offensive line held up better towards the end of the season, but got dog-walked in the playoffs against the Seattle Seahawks. That said, I think Matt Hennessy is kind of not a glue player to the depth of the offensive line, but somebody that you really want to have in that room, because think about it this way. You might lose Ben Barch. You might lose Burford. Trent's 38 or going into his age 38 season. Brendel's 33, 34, missed some time for the first time in a while this season. You have Pooney, who you like, obviously. You re-sign McKivitz, and it's like behind those guys, you really don't have anybody else, and it's Connor Colby. Why would you not want to have one of, or at least a valuable backup center in the room behind Jake Brendel? Will give you much needed depth at a pretty pivotal position in the Shanahan offense. I bring him back in a heartbeat. Hopefully the price isn't too high for him. And I could see teams saying, you know what, we're not going to give him a massive contract, but we have to have a placeholder there for now. Hennessy could be that for a handful of teams, and I think San Francisco should do what it takes to bring him back at a reasonable price if they can. The next guy, though, is Patrick Taylor Jr., running back who got hurt, I think, in preseason, didn't play a single snap for San Francisco this year, but did show some signs of some good things in 2024. Now, I don't think they should bring him back unless it is simply a can't body. He does have some return man experience, if you will, on kick returns. And he is somebody that did play some snaps, again, for this team 2 years ago in 2024 now. I just think he's like running backs are a dime a dozen. They're like the old, coin machines. You put in a penny, you can get two things out of it, right? It just draft a running back, sign a running back, UDFA guys. You can find what PTJ brings to the table for half the price for free, basically. And I think he's somebody that actually may want to go to a place where he can actually find some playing time. I don't think it's, going to happen, but the Vikings, maybe Aaron Jones has been hurt a lot. Jordan Mason has had his injury history in the past. The Patriots are a team that, may win the Super Bowl this year. Hopefully they do over the Seattle Seahawks. But that running back room is not set in stone, and there's injuries to that room a lot. And I think, you can go down the docket too. The Packers could make some sense for him going back to Green Bay. I just don't think San Francisco needs him back, nor do they really need to bring him back, because you can find guys like him everywhere. So I would let PTJ walk unless, again, it's for super cheap. He is a fringe roster guy on the bubble if he does indeed get brought back. But I wouldn't bring him back. Go get some fresh legs, some speed onto this offense, hopefully, at the RB position behind Christian McCaffrey and Grendo and Jordan James and whoever else they bring in. I want some speed, not guys who are fifth running back material behind CMC. But he runs hard. He lowers his head. Shanahan likes that thing, so I can see him bringing Bot back, but I would not do it. Before we get into our next player, I want to remind you guys, if you want to go to a sporting event, MLB is nearly here. I think spring training is in like 2 weeks or so in Florida and Arizona. The NBA is in full swing. Or if you're saying, you know what, sports to me, football's almost over, spring is around the corner. That's when the concerts happen. That's when you can go on Broadway and see all these plays. And if you're like my wife, you are eyeing Harry Styles tickets in New York City, you want to use promo code 49ers Access, 49 ERS ACCESS at SeatGeek.com. You can save yourself $20 off your first purchase. Things are expensive nowadays, like really expensive. The price of eggs, albeit cheaper than it was 4 years ago, still really expensive. Gas, still expensive. If you can save yourself $20 off anything, and I mean anything, why wouldn't you use it? So use that promo code 49ers Access. Help us out here on the show, and we can help you out in return, saving $20 off. Let that be your gas. Let that be your parking. Let it be a small discount on behalf of us. And again, putting money back in your pocket to help pay for other things down the road. Again, 49 ERS ACCESS at SeatGeek.com to save yourself $20 off your first purchase. Okay, rapid fire here, really fast. Some pretty obvious bringbacks. The next two guys, Eddie Pinheiro. He was a season-saving signing by San Francisco. Say that 3 times fast. Season-saving signing by the San Francisco 49ers. He was nails for this team. Game-winning field goal against the Cardinals, a career-long 56-yard field goal against the Rams in Week 5 to help win that game on the road at SoFi Stadium. He was just everything this team needs. We all talk about Brock Purdy and how great he was towards the end of the season, how great Kyle Shanahan was throughout the entire year, battling with all the injuries he had on the offense. Eddie Pinheiro may have been the best addition on the entire team, not named Robert Saleh, as the defensive coordinator because he saved their season. Without him, they're not vying for the number 1 seed by week 18. Without him, they might miss the playoffs. And just think about a life where Jake Moody is still attempting kicks post week 1, which was a disaster, mind you. This team would be nowhere near a 12-win team without a player like Eddie Pinheiro. So bring him back, a 2 or 3 year deal. Hopefully San Francisco leaves themselves some room to not get burnt by this, because I love Eddie P. He deserves to get brought back. He's earned the right to get brought back. However, we know this now that kicker is one of the more volatile positions on any roster. 1 year, a guy's great. The next year, they get the yips. That's scary. I think San Francisco should work towards more of a 2-year, $8 million deal, 2-year, $9 million deal. There's no reason to break the bank for Eddie Pinheiro, but also he's a guy who, among your list of free agents, might be at the top of priority. So don't play too many games. He wants to come back to San Francisco. He mentioned unfinished business after the year. So bring him back, give him a 2 or 3 year deal, and hopefully everything continues to work out for him and the Niners, which it was perfect this year for both parties. He saved Kyle Shanahan's butt, also saved the special teams grouping this year, and again, helped San Francisco win 12 games, which again, without him, it wouldn't happen. So bring back Eddie P if they can. He is probably at the top of the list of guys you want to bring back in 2026. The next guy, although not as important as Eddie P, I think does add value to the fringes of your roster. That is Clelin Ferrell. Somebody, again, former first-round draft pick, was in San Francisco a couple years ago in 2023, got hurt, couldn't play in the Super Bowl, which definitely sucked for him. They had to go get Chase Young, Randy Gregory. We all know what happened in that game. I know. But now back in San Francisco for a second stint. Again, kind of a practice squad, elevation type player. Somebody you maybe sign on the active roster, somebody else gets hurt. But also somebody I think can help young players in their kind of grooming years, if you will, where it's year 1, year 2, year 3 for guys. And you're hoping you bring someone like Ferrell in simply because what he does well is he has high-end effort. He's somebody who was a first-round draft pick. It didn't work out in Las Vegas or Oakland for obvious reasons. And he's had to fight his way back to earn every single rep he gets. And to me, that's really valuable to have, because when I think of a guy like that, I think of, okay, I'm a first-round draft pick defensive end. I'm a day 1, day 2, maybe early day 3 guy. I've owned the SEC. I've owned, the ACC, the Big 12, if you will. And I'm like, the NFL. I am the NFL, right? I'm ready. I don't need to learn from anybody. I can come in there, slack off, and do my thing like I could in college. Meanwhile, you have guys like Ferrell that work their butt off every single rep. They give you everything they have, 110%, every single snap. That rubs off on younger players. Sometimes it rubs off on veteran players too. And I think, you want to instill that motor, that never give up, that every single rep matters for a young player. So on a team that has Micah Williams and Alfred Collins and CJ West, and I'm sure at some point they'll add 2 to 3 more guys that are young in the draft this year, Ferrell to me screams bring back by the simple fact of if someone gets hurt, he's all reliable. He's there. But on top of that, he can teach these young guys, hey man, none of this is promised. Every rep, you got to go 100%. I think that is something that Chris Kocurek loves. I'm sure whether it's Gus Bradley, Raheem Morris, whoever is the next DC in San Francisco, they'll love too. And I know Kyle Shanahan loves having a player like that in his room. The next 2 guys to me are clear cuts. That is Trent Taylor. If you asked me, was Trent Taylor around or even on the team this past season, the answer would have been no, because why would he be? But I think he was signed before OTAs and immediately placed on IR. He was clearly there for the vibes. And in fact, I don't even know if there was a year he hasn't been in San Francisco for the vibes. He's friends with Kittle and Juszczyk and McCaffrey, and that's kind of why he's around. He keeps things light, and I just think I wouldn't bring him back. But let's be honest here, they'll sign him again. He'll be on IR for the whole year, but he'll get a paycheck and he'll get to hang out with best friends for another season. So, Trent Taylor, he has no impact on the roster, but if he's getting paid $100,000, I guarantee you he'll be back next year. But nevertheless, I'd let him walk for obvious reasons. But San Francisco, it's Dante Johnson on defense and it's Trent Taylor on offense. He is the new Dante Johnson of the 49ers. But I'd let him walk if I could. The next guy, Curtis Robinson. I really feel bad for Curtis Robinson because I really love Curtis Robinson. I think, he got a chance to play Mike linebacker for the first time in his NFL career this year and kind of squandered the opportunity. He was better in pass coverage than Bethune was, but really struggled against the run. Then after a couple of fine enough games, just fell apart defensively, and I think you're kind of saying the player he'll be. And you saw why San Francisco was like, go get Eric Kendricks. That said, I would not bring back Curtis Robinson. He's not old. It's just that a lot of injuries there with him. And also, you need to find other fringe linebackers that are younger. Again, he's not like old. It's just like you can find a 22-year-old guy that can do exactly what he does for half the price, or at least somebody you believe there's some upside there. He's similar to the Robert Bill Jr.'s of the world, Clea Davises of the world, of like, yeah, it's not great, and you can find younger dudes that can give you at least more upside compared to players like Robinson, Bill Jr., and Clea Davis in 2026. The next big one on our list is Eric Kendricks, and this may be controversial. I would not bring back Eric Kendricks. I think this team obviously has Fred Warner. They have Tatum Bethune. I don't know if they're comfortable with Bethune being the backup Mike linebacker, but I don't see a reason why they'd be eager to move off of him or at least bury him behind a 32-year-old, 33-year-old Eric Kendricks. I know he was a season saver against Philadelphia. We know that. We're grateful for his service, but there's a reason why he wasn't signed till like December. He's somebody that I think, is waiting for the right opportunity. I don't know if there's a reason for San Francisco to be like, yes, got to bring back EK. I like him, but I'd rather be younger at linebacker than older. I think he's somebody that, clearly you saw maybe Philadelphia was an offense that he just fared well against, and there wasn't much imagination behind it. Meanwhile, you play Seattle, and it's a whole different story. Now, I'm not saying he was terrible against Seattle, but he certainly wasn't as good as he was the week prior. I also don't know what he'll want money-wise, and I think that San Francisco realizes that they have Winters, they have Warner, Bethune, hopefully Nick Martin comes back, and you bring back Garrett Wallow, and you sign a guy, you maybe draft a dude too on top of that, and maybe as a preseason player, fine, but I just don't see a spot for him on the roster, on the active roster, if you will, to begin next season barring injury. And he's a guy who probably on the exact same path he was this year. Be kind of a, mercenary for hire. Late in the season, someone goes down, you need to stopgap the guy for a month or so to help bridge the gap to getting your star player to return. That's exactly what he was for San Francisco. Had they beat the Seahawks, he probably wouldn't have played again the rest of the time because Fred Warner was back in the fray. And with Fred back, I just don't see a spot for him. So I'd let Robinson and Kendricks walk if it were me this offseason. And I don't really think Kendricks signs somewhere and probably is in the exact same spot he was. So he might be there for San Francisco if something happens to Fred Warner. Hopefully it doesn't, but if it does, he'll probably be there again in 2026. The next guy, too, is Thomas Morstead, the punter of the San Francisco 49ers. And I think I like Thomas Morstead. He's a fun dude. He's a 40-year-old man. He loves football. He loves Brant Boyer. And I think the Niners want to have some level of consistency on special teams. You lose Robert Saleh, you retain Brant Boyer, you hope to bring back Pinheiro, you want to bring back John Weeks, and I think the plan is to bring back Thomas Morstead too. He ain't going to cost you much. And I think, Morstead is valuable when it comes to placement of the football on punts, but I think we can all agree you can do better. No offense to him, he is 40 years old. And at that point in time, the leg tends to go as Father Time says, hello, I'm here, which isn't a bad thing. He's going to be on a 1-year deal again if he does get brought back. I'm not against bringing him back, but I think, you can find better punters that can kick the ball past 55 yards through the air. And I would take maybe a little inaccuracy or maybe less ball placement, but I'd rather have a dude that can maybe have 85% of the ball placement, but, plus 20% in the leg power department. So not against it, but not exactly for it. He'll probably be brought back. But again, I think you can improve the fringes, the small thing on the roster, because San Francisco truly does have a lot of starters being brought back or already, rostered under contract for next year. It's like, where can we find small improvements? Punter might be one of them, but again, he'll be brought back on a 1-year deal. Don't love it, don't hate it. It's just fine. It's fine. The next guy, though, Brian Robinson Jr. I think, like most Niner fans, I was clamoring for the Niners, Shanahan, to play him more. And we saw it in small glimpses against the Giants being one of the big examples of that, of like, see, he can be part of the offense. He can spell Christian McCaffrey for, 10 to 12 rushes per game and save his legs. And I don't know if I would bring B-Rob back. I think you can find a better player. I think he was held back like Christian McCaffrey due to San Francisco's underwhelming run blocking this year. But also, I just don't know if he's a guy that, like, what is Brian Robinson's market? Do you see a team? It's like, oh, I gotta sign Brian Robinson. I don't know if I do. Maybe that opens the door for San Francisco to bring him back next year for, somewhat cheap. I wouldn't mind him being in the room. He was, for whatever reason, San Francisco's kick returner in the playoff game, and was for a large portion of the season from like week 6 and on. It was like B-Rob is the guy next to Sky Moore, and it's like, I don't love that. So I guess San Francisco found some value in him somewhere, but I would look elsewhere for a running back. Obviously, there's plenty of names out there. You can go for big in Breece Hall. I'd almost pay up for Tyler Algier and get you a true short yardage power back behind Chris McCaffrey that can run 12 times a game legitimately and give you, 65 yards and give you that thumper behind it, where Brian Robinson really wasn't that. Maybe San Francisco eyes somebody like Isaiah Pacheco, who has a lot of injuries on his legs, but shouldn't be too expensive and has been able to be a lead back in an offense where the Chiefs kind of stopped running this year for whatever reason. I think, Shanahan is the running back whisperer. If there is a place you can be cheaper yet find the same production, it's probably running back behind Christian McCaffrey. And there's plenty of running backs in this draft to take. So I would let Brian Robinson walk, depending on the price. I don't know what that price will be, but anything above, say, $4 million, we can say goodbye. That is my caveat for the B-Rob retention, if you will, on the show. The next guy is Ben Bartch. I like Ben Bartch, the player. He's fine. I think San Francisco values what he can do more than I do. I think you can find replacement level left guards everywhere. I think Ben Bartch, if healthy, which is so rare, him being out on IR twice this year was not a surprise whatsoever. And I just don't think by that simple fact you can bring him back. Or if you do bring him back, he's somebody who was like not really penciled in for a role. Um, I'm not sure if he can play right guard. I don't know why he couldn't, but he's been a left guard in San Francisco now for a while. He was claimed off waivers, I think either early last season, that being 2024, or really late in 2023. I just don't trust him. I would bring him back on a really cheap 1 year deal, be the backup. Connor Colby can go to right guard if he has to. You can be a backup to hopefully a draftable left guard or a large enough signing, starting caliber left guard. John Simpson, Elijah Vera Tucker, somebody who you can at least trust or at least buy into the fact of like Ben Barch is not a starting caliber left guard in football. I don't know why here they have him being a left tackle on over the cap, but I digress. I'd bring him back on a 1 year cheap deal of like, dude, you got to be healthy and prove it. But even then, it's like, I mean, there really is no reason to believe in him being healthy. So again, I'd bring him back 1 year deal. Just be in your corner. Don't ever listen to our training staff. They're terrible. But I think as like a backup third string roster fringe left guard guy, bring him back. There's no harm in doing so. He's not going to cost you anything. And I think San Francisco likes him a lot. That's why I think you'd bring him back. That to me is why he'll be back next year in 2026. John Weeks, long snapper, bring him back. He was a Pro Bowler. This, that, and the other, that's done. Like, yes, you bring back your 39-year-old, 40-year-old long snapper. Why wouldn't you do it? It worked with Pinheiro and Morstead. Just don't mess that up if possible. Now is where things get tricky because this is the better players on the list. We saved the best chunk for last. The next player is wide receiver Sky Moore. And I really like Sky Moore. He has some speed. I think he is a good kick returner. I think he's a pretty bad punt returner. I think for all the good he does, making guys miss, he seems really comfortable back fielding punts and kicks. He's probably San Francisco's most dangerous punt returner / return man since Ted Ginn Jr., which is just crazy to say. Had a big 98-yard return to the 1 yard line against the Cardinals in that game. And I think you saw teams like the Eagles, like the Seahawks, kick the ball away from him in playoff games, knowing he's dangerous back there. I would try to bring him back. However, the Niners also feel like a team that doesn't need to pay big for him. They may like Junior Burgeon on the roster more. He was a great return man in college. Maybe they're like, you know what, whatever, go sign elsewhere. You're not going to hurt us. He offered you nothing as a wide receiver, basically. And on a roster that doesn't really have any proven receivers, it's Pearsall, Watkins, Cowing, Junior Burgeon, and that's kind of it. Sky Moore doesn't really offer you much more outside of being a return man. And, you know, I don't know, like the Niners are in a position to either draft a top end receiver in the first or second round or sign one or two of those guys. And I don't know what the plan is for Rashid Shaheed in Seattle. If that guy's out there, fine. But if you can't get that guy, Sky Moore feels like the kind of like fallback option if you can't find a real true speedster to be your return man. So in that case, you can bring him back. But, you know, he feels like he's more of that Chase Lucas style of player of like, you know what? I want you on the roster, but in the first couple waves of free agency, we'll give you a call in April. We'll give you a call in May when OTAs kind of, you know, start to kind of come into swing. But yeah, I don't know. Like, can you afford to lose Sky Moore? Yes. But also, like, he was a pretty valuable option back there on kicks and punts this year. But stop catching the ball inside your own 10-yard line, buddy. I don't know who taught you that. Stop it. It makes no sense. You can look like a bozo back there. But other than that, why not bring back Sky Moore? The next player is somebody I would not bring back. That is Kendrick Bourne. I think either Over the Cap or Spotrac has him projected to make $6 million next year. If that's the case, thank you for your service. The vibes are always great. We love you, KB. Good luck elsewhere. Now, I do think San Francisco probably will try to bring KB back. I think he wants to be in San Francisco. He likes Kyle Shanahan. And again, it's not like he wouldn't be the receiver 3 in the room right now if you had the room the way it's constructed. Yeah, Pearsall. I forgot DeMarcus Robinson for a second because he wasn't good this year. But yeah, Pearsall, DeMarcus Robinson, Kendrick Bourne, and then you have Watkins and Cowing. It's like Bourne could easily say, I may not be receiver 1, 2, or 3 in that room once they sign somebody, but it's like I can fit in there. And so KB, I think, is somebody, again, if he's getting $6 million, he fits in that Brian Robinson conversation of like, I like you a lot, man, and the vibes are good, and you did add some value to a team who desperately needed that value when you were playing against the Colts, against the Rams. Like KB did have a couple big games for San Francisco this year. He keeps things light. He keeps things, kind of, in a positive outlook when things maybe aren't great for the team. So it's like, for that case, why not bring him back? But if you're making, like Brian Robinson, $4, $5, $6 million per year, it's like, no. No. We're talking like $3 million with incentives, and you're probably not going to reach him. That feels like deals you make for Brian Robinson and Kendrick Bourne and guys like that. But once you get above $5, $6 million, hey man, see you later. Yeah, it's just money obviously plays a big factor. If you can't bring back KB, sure, but maybe what would it be now, 5th year in the offense, he'll finally learn where to line up on the line of scrimmage. But nevertheless, vibes are good with KB. If you can, sure. If you can't, there's no harm in losing him. The next player is somebody I would bring back, although most Niner fans may not want to for whatever reason. That is Luke Gifford. Luke Gifford probably shouldn't be playing Sam linebacker on base downs. I'll give you that. I don't think it's a surprise there to say that. But he is a really good special teams player. He was one of San Francisco's key signings of the offseason. It was Luke Farrell. It was Luke Gifford. And he was, of the Lukes, by far the better of the two. I like Luke Gifford a lot. I think, of a class that has Robinson, Kendricks, Wallow, Gifford, I'd bring back Gifford and Wallow over Kendricks and Robinson any day of the week. I think he adds more value to the team. He doesn't clog up the Mike linebacker position like Kendricks would, blocking Bethune, but also, is a veteran presence behind players like Nick Martin and D. Winters. Do I think you can find better players? Sure. But I think on a 1-year deal, he knows the team now. He knows the defense now. I don't see San Francisco, changing a lot defensively with the new DC they bring in to replace Saleh. So it's like, yeah, bring Gifford back. He was a really good special teamer for you. So it's like, yeah, that's the guy you want to retain. You want to retain what was probably your best and most consistent unit all year, which was special teams. Pinheiro, Morstead, Weeks, Gifford. Morstead can give or take, but you want to bring back a lot of your main guys, and Gifford was one of those dudes on the team. The next player, Kevin Givens. I mean, dude's been cut and brought back so many times. He was hurt to begin the year. He was starting over West for a long time, and then West was like, this makes no sense. Now I'm starting. Then now I'm not starting, and now I'm restarting. And Givens was inactive for a lot of games this year, and it's, does he become that practice squad elevation guy? Does he leave elsewhere? Kevin Givens moves me not at all. So I would let Kevin Givens walk in 2026. The next guy on top of that, maybe the second most conviction I have on letting somebody walk in San Francisco's impending free agent class, is Jason Pinnock. I really liked the prospects of the signing of Jason Pinnock. He was a guy that can play in the box. He had a ton of takeaways on his resume, and I was like, yep, that's an underrated signing for 1 year. Just a big boom player for him. Makes a lot of sense. And he got to San Francisco, and he sucked. He couldn't run defend. He couldn't pass defend. He was terrible in coverage. They tried that big nickel role with him because Jair Brown became their starter because Siegel got benched. It just didn't work. And San Francisco desperately, maybe one of their biggest needs this year is a legitimate coverage safety. That's not Pinnock. If Pinnock is like your fifth safety in the room, okay, whatever. But with what San Francisco at least attempted to do last year on defense, it didn't work. And San Francisco, with Brown on their contract still, we'll see if he actually makes the roster next year. You have Siegel in there. You have Mustafa. You really got to find that dude that can fix the back end of that secondary. Obviously, getting better pass rushers in there and whatnot helps, but Pinnock just kind of felt like the lame duck. Like, not to say he was Devondre Campbell levels of bad, because he didn't quit on the team. He just was a guy you knew, if he's out there, this is going to be a disaster. And for most of the time, it was not good. So let him walk by far. There's no reason to bring him back. Didn't work. Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Thank you for your time here, but, go elsewhere and have fun. Go to Tennessee. Go with Robert Saleh. Don't come back to San Francisco. The next guy I think will be priced out of San Francisco's range is Spencer Burford. I like what Burford brings to the table as a left guard, left tackle, swingman, where if you want to let Ben Barch go, and Burford, let's say his market isn't as big as I think it'll be, Burford, I think, is a fine player. He's not great. Sometimes he's not good. Sometimes he's, again, fine. I think he really improved this year. I know he gets a lot of hate because of how the playoff games went, or the two Seattle games went late in the season. But, Burford really did finally find some comfortability on the left side of the offensive line, which, shocker, that's where he played in college. Who would have thought that'd be the case? And I think it showed. He was better in pass protection, better run blocker this year than he ever has been. However, I think that, like Jalen Moore last season, he stepped up, got a big payday. I think the Chiefs regret that deal, if you'd ask me. And I think there's going to be somebody out there that sees Spencer Burford and said, well, if San Francisco liked him, we should too. Which probably isn't the best way to base your offensive line on, knowing how bad San Francisco has been in that category. But I think the Niners are going to have to watch him leave. Now, never a bad thing. Guys get paid big money. Compensation bit could come back to San Francisco in this case, and I think Burford is at least one of those guys in line for a nice chunk of change in free agency in what is a rather weak interior offensive line class. Burford could be one of those top 5 guys, shockingly, that gets paid. It's like Elijah Vera Tucker, Linderbaum, and from what I was looking at, that's kind of the guy, Connor McGovern in there too. It's like you have your kind of B, C tier dudes, and that's Burford and, some guys like that. So he might get paid a nice chunk of change. You're prying the Packers want to give him an Aaron Banks $72 million 4-year contract again. But Burford is a guy I like a lot, but he probably has played his last down in San Francisco. But I would not be shocked to see San Francisco try to bring him back. They like continuity. And I think that, Chris Forrester believes in the guys they draft, albeit, again, maybe he shouldn't at times. But I think he'll get outpriced, or I think the Niners will get outpriced by somebody else. The next player who I think really benefited from the team around him, and once that went away, it was just what happened. That being Jordan Elliott, the interior defensive lineman. When Bosa and Mikel and Huff were all healthy and the Niners defense looked how it was supposed to look, Elliott was having a phenomenal 2-week stretch of play as a pass rusher. As soon as they all got hurt, it was a nightmare for him. He was a replacement level defensive tackle all year long. Um, he again, like Clee Davis, was pretty much healthy all year. I think he missed one game because he hurt himself stretching in the locker room in pregame. Outside of that, you know, like Khalid Davis, same thing. If he's your fifth defensive tackle, you don't mind it. But if that's not going to happen, then you probably don't want to bring him back. He's in my kind of maybe re-sign category alongside guys like Kendrick Bourne, Brian Robinson, Sky Moore. And we'll get to the last guy on that list, which I probably will take out of that category. But I don't know. He just someone who where it's like he needs to be in the perfect place to be good. And if it's not perfect, which I wouldn't bank on Michael and Bosa being healthy all year at least next year, and fingers crossed that's the case. But you just know it's the Niners and someone's gonna go down, and Jordan Elliott probably isn't the person you want to rely on in that case. But if he's your fifth guy, like if they have Alfred Collins, West, they go sign, John Franklin Myers or somebody else in free agency and then go draft a guy and like you bring back Jordan Elliott, okay, fine. But right now he's like on the bottom tier of my maybe resign category and probably towards the top of like the, don't bring back, which essentially means you can bring him back if you want to, but you have to know what you're getting yourself into next year. So I like Elliott, but it really has to be with Bosa and Michael and somebody else involved where he has to be like the fifth guy on the roster on the depth chart. The next player, I want to skip ahead and I will save Juwan Jennings for last. I'll make you wait one more player. But the next guy, I think a clear do not bring back. What a disaster signing. That was Yetur Gross-Matos. Why GM, very similar to Jordan Elliott, needed everything to be perfect. When everyone was healthy, Yetur Gross-Matos was, and I'm not kidding here, the best interior pass rusher in football for 2 weeks, 3 weeks. And it was like, oh my God, it's going to work. Nick Sorensen had no idea how to use him. Solo's here. The team's healthy. He fits into kind of that role, the Charles Omenihu role. And it's going to be great and perfect. And all of a sudden it was like, oh my God, he's hurt again and he stinks again. And this is a waste of $19 million. Goodbye. You can't stay healthy. Your hamstrings are washed. You fit what San Francisco, like the archetypal interior pass rusher San Francisco likes, but they need durability. They need guys that can be out there for 15 games a year, 16 games a year, and actually give them valuable pass rush when guys like Bosa and Michael either can't play or are being double teamed. And Gross-Matos just wasn't that. He wasn't healthy enough. He wasn't available enough. For 2 years, he was out. And San Francisco won in spite of him being hurt a lot of the time. And so, goodbye. It was an overpriced deal at the time. You thought maybe, okay, he was hurt in Carolina. Maybe he'll kind of click in San Francisco. It's happened plenty of times before. Arden Key, Farrell, Omenihu. It wasn't the case. It was just a disaster. Too much money, ill-advised contract. And thankfully, we can kind of erase that 2024 free agency class. Elliott, Leonard Floyd is already gone, and so can Yetur Gross-Matos go. And you can just say goodbye. It just was a bad signing. Wash it. Don't make it again. And we'll see you later. He's at the very bottom, which means he's the guy you'd never want to bring back if you are the 49ers in 2026. And finally, wrapping up the show, Juwan Jennings. And this may be controversial because my heart really wants to bring back Juwan Jennings. He fits what San Francisco wants to do offensively. He's a great blocker. He fights for every inch, every yard. Him and Brock Purdy have great chemistry. He's very clutch. It's like that's a guy that most franchises beg and pray they can find in the 7th round of a draft. And the Niners found a dude like him, and he's been awesome since 2021. He's a big reason they won, all the way back to his rookie season in Los Angeles, throwing and catching touchdown passes against the Rams. He was a near Super Bowl MVP. He's a big reason they won the playoff game against Philadelphia this year too. Um, but I think, like Burford, the price tag will be too high. If what is currently being thought of and said is accurate, Juwan Jennings asked for $20+ million before the season. Then he hit every single incentive marker in his contract when the Niners redid it. And now he's asking for more money and had a career year on top of that with 9 touchdowns. There's every indication that Juwan Jennings, and we'll see how things go. This is a pretty good receiver class draft-wise. It's a pretty good receiver class free agency-wise. Juwan isn't explosive. Juwan is more of that kind of tight end 2, bigger position receiver guy who I think, won't get paid as much as he wants. But if you're asking to pay Juwan Jennings $18 million per year, I don't know if you can do that. I think Juwan's skill set translates to longevity. He's not somebody that's a bruiser. Yeah, he's a bigger dude, but he plays through injuries all the time. He's pretty durable. He seems like he can fight through pain on a consistent basis. His game isn't reliant on speed. He isn't a 4-3 guy. He isn't a 4-4 guy. He's not going to get slower as he gets older. He's already slow now. Like, what you're getting yourself into. He's not Tyreek Hill, who, like, as soon as he hits a 4-6, it's like, yeah, what do you bring, right? And I think that, Juwan, while you're leaving this Niners receiver room just barren of proven talent, I don't know if San Francisco can afford to pay Juwan Jennings $18, $20, $24 million a year, knowing that he had maybe the worst 2 games of the entire season against the Seahawks in 2 of 3 weeks to end the year. Him and Demarcus Robinson were just awful in those 2 games. And you're going into a class of receivers in free agency that can actually offer you some speed, and maybe not give you the run blocking that Juwan Jennings offers you in that bigger slot receiver role that Juwan can give you. There's also plenty of guys in the draft that can give you that too, that are going to be cheaper, younger, less injuries on their body, but also I'd rather pay Alec Pierce $20 million, $22 million and pay Juwan Jennings 18. I'd take a chance on Rashid Shaheed or Wandale Robinson or Jalen Naylor or Christian Kirk, who's a little older but has a lot of speed to his game, or even paying and buying really, really low on Tutu Atwell in free agency, knowing that you can actually get some speed back in your offense. And, while Juwan is so valuable, and I love JJ, who doesn't love third and Juwan? And it's going to be so hard to likely inevitably say goodbye to a player like him now that Debo's gone, Ayuk will be gone too. That 2021, 22, 23 receiving core is gone. And it sucks. And the Niners truly have every reason to want to bring him back. I think, John Lynch talked about it in his post-season press conference of like, we have to bring back Juwan. We want to bring Juwan Jennings back. I think they'll try. The only hope is that with the receiver class coming up in the draft and the receiver market and free agency, Juwan is not getting offers that he likes. And he's getting offers for $12 million per year. Maybe the max you go is $15 million per year. And you give him a 3-year, $45 million deal and you call it a day. I don't mind doing that. But as soon as you get into 20, 18, $24 million, that's when you gotta kind of say, is it worth, is the juice worth the squeeze? And for Juwan, who is nearing the age of 30, which isn't a death sentence to his career. Again, I think his skill set translates. I just don't know if Juwan's the guy you want to invest in. He's a team player. That is for sure. That is for certain. He loves being a 49er. He was emotional, kind of having to think about saying goodbye to the team and the coaching staff and the roster and the memories he has here. But I don't know. Like, I think of teams like the Saints, teams like the Chiefs, teams like, I don't know, the Vikings, if they traded with Jordan Addison, teams like the Bills, of like, those teams need a player like Jawan Jennings, whereas San Francisco needs a speedster, if not two or three of those guys that are like dynamic game changers, and Jawan really isn't that. But, we'll see as the offseason goes on. A lot of time has to go on. We have 2 months really until free agency kicks off, which will be really fun to see. But, the Niners should probably say goodbye to Jawan Jennings, barring his price value just plummeting, which could happen. Like, I'm not saying it's not going to happen that way. There's a very real chance Jawan does not get what he's asking for. But if he's getting, $20+ million a year, $18+ million a year, you have to bite the bullet and say goodbye to Jawan Jennings. That said, of the near 20+ free agents San Francisco has impending, which one would you bring back? Would you say, no, Sterling, you have to bring back Jawan Jennings? Or are you saying, no, you let him walk? You got to find somebody else. Let him walk. Drop your comments down below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Leave us that 5-star audio podcast. And don't forget, this is coming up soon. We will look at the entire free agency class, position by position, quarterback all the way down to safety, of who San Francisco could and should target, their market value, who fits their system, and who I think San Francisco should target this offseason to help rebuild the roster and bring them back to being legitimate Super Bowl contenders. With that said, my name is Sterling Bennett, and as always, stay faithful.
Well, the holidays have come and gone once again, but if you've forgotten to get that special someone in your life a gift, well, Mint Mobile is extending their holiday offer of half off unlimited wireless. So here's the idea. You get it now, you call it an early present for next year. What do you have to lose? Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Limited time, 50% off regular price for new customers. Upfront payment required. $45 for 3 months, $90 for 6 months, or $180 for 12-month plan. Taxes and fees extra. Speeds may slow after 50 gigabytes per month when network is busy. See terms.